Coming up, 2 new light sport aircraft from RANS.
And we'll have the latest from the U.S. Sport Aviation Expo in Sebring, Florida.
GA groups say, show us the meat.
And an Uber helicopter app. AOPA Live this week begins in just a moment.
It's been called the most sophisticated single-engine airplane ever. But to the people whose loved ones are alive today, it's called a lifesaver. The Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, only from Cirrus Aircraft.
It looks like it might be us versus them. General aviation against the airlines. Hello everyone and welcome to AOPA Live this week. I'm Melissa Rudinger.
And I'm Tom Haynes. Thanks for joining us on AOPA Live this week. Well, there's a push in the House of Representatives to privatize air traffic control and pay for it with user fees.
We will establish a stable, self-sustaining, and fair user fee funding structure for ATC. We're moving from the budget process and the annual appropriation cycle and free from funding uncertainty, political meddling, bureaucratic red tape that have plagued the FAA and ATC services for years.
That was Representative Schuster speaking to the Aero Club of Washington. Schuster controls the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, which will write the FAA reauthorization bill. Schuster has made ATC privatization and user fees a central point of his vision for the bill.
And many of the big airlines are backing that major play for major changes to FAA and how it's paid for. And that's why 15 of the nation's most influential general aviation groups, including AOPA, just sent this letter to the leaders of the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee and the Aviation Subcommittee. Nobody has yet seen a copy of FAA reauthorization bill. The general aviation groups said that considering the magnitude of the change to the aviation system, the committee should provide ample opportunity for all stakeholders and citizens to carefully review, analyze, and debate any proposed legislation changing the governance and funding for air traffic control.
Now, FAA's funding expires at the end of March, so the reauthorization bill or a funding extension has to be passed by then. Capitol Hill sources say they expect the Transportation Committee to take up the reauthorization bill around February 11th. And that has meaning for third-class medical reform, too. Medical reform passed the Senate as part of the Pilots' Bill of Rights, too. The House might consider that bill, but with other big aviation issues on the table, the standalone legislation could take a back seat to a more comprehensive FAA reauthorization bill. It's possible that medical certificate reform might be attached to the FAA reauthorization bill.
Okay, so now on to something a bit more fun. The 2016 aviation events schedule is getting kicked off this week with the Sport Expo in Florida. That's where we find AOPA Live's Paul Harrop.
So Paul, no jacket down there?
Yeah, it is short sleeve weather here in Sebring, Florida as the U.S. Sport Aviation Expo gets started. And the warm weather is not the only thing that organizers hope will draw a bigger crowd. They've got a lot of new things on tap for this year.
Sebring is always a fun show for us to come to.
It's about good weather, good airplanes, and a good time without the hassle of some of the bigger shows.
Beautiful day. I've done a demo or two. A lot of good prospects are coming through.
Most everyone here left cooler temperatures to head to the Central Florida Highlands.
It was literally 0 degrees when we left Mexico, Missouri 2 days ago.
And with the weather cooperating, Expo Director Jana Phillip hopes more people will come out to see the event. She's worked hard to program the seminars, bring new events in, and new this year, made a big push to get young people to come to the Expo grounds.
Because we're a Wednesday through Saturday show, that really only gives that one weekend day to get the students out here. So it's a little enticement. It's the students are complimentary on Saturday when they're accompanied by an adult. And we've reached out to a lot of the aero clubs and colleges and classes that take place in the area. A lot of the youth EAA programs are also coming in. And we've kind of geared that day towards the youth and hope that the aviators of tomorrow will come out here this year.
The last 3 years, there have been 2 rain days each year, bringing the average attendance to about 18,500. Phillip hopes to see that number climb up with the push out to the students.
And there's also some fairly big news within the home-built LSA world. Zenith Aircraft has purchased the SAM Aircraft Company's assets in a deal announced this week. The SAM LS made headlines several years ago as a home-built LSA that was designed to look like warbird trainers from World War II. Zenith's Sebastian Heinz saying he's excited about the purchase.
The acquisition of the SAM Aircraft assets is definitely a departure from what we normally do. We've always cultivated things in-house in the past, but this was an opportunity that presented itself. We looked at it long and hard and decided to proceed with it for a number of reasons, and primarily the fact that it's a technology, the way the aircraft is constructed and designed, really very similar to our own design and construction philosophy, so it's something that we believe we can bring in-house with minimal pain. And then also the design itself, it's a unique aircraft, quite different than what we currently do.
Heinz says right now the company is in a market research phase, reaching out and trying to see what customers want in the SAM. They hope to have a big announcement and the airplane flying as soon as Sun and Fun. But there is another new airplane making a splash here at Expo. This is the Innovator from Commuter Craft. It is a radical design with a canard up front and side-by-side seating with a 60-inch cockpit. They call it a 3-lifting surfaced aircraft. The connected tail is actually a lift surface, as are the wings and the canard up front. The aircraft designer hopes that it will bring a new, young audience into aviation. They're still developing the prototype model. We'll have more on that airplane in a future edition. So a lot to see here at the U.S. Sport Aviation Expo, a lot to do, including going to a Rusty Pilot seminar by AOPA's own Jamie Beckett, followed up by a screening of Flying Again, the movie about Rusty Pilots. We've got the 152 reimagined and an AOPA tent here as well. We are going to bring you more from Expo next week, but for now, I'm Paul Harrop in sunny Florida. Back to you.
All right, thanks, Paul. Don't forget the sunscreen. We'll see more of that next week.
And coming up after the break, 2 new light sport aircraft from Hays, Kansas.
And now there's an Uber app for helicopters. You're watching AOPA Live this week.
From your first skyward glance, the dream of flight compelled you. And from your first glimpse of a Cirrus, you realized that dream had a name. Cirrus Aircraft. Go where you've never been before.
Welcome back. You're watching AOPA Live this week.
The Veterans Airlift Command is flying a little higher thanks to AOPA members. AOPA donated more than $1,300 to the organization that provides free transportation to combat wounded veterans and their families. The donation was based on a percentage of new AOPA memberships and renewals between November 11th, Veterans Day, and the 22nd.
And the FAA wants your help. The annual General Aviation Survey has started. Selected aircraft owners will get a postcard asking them questions about how they use and equip their aircraft. This info is important to understanding the GA fleet, the impact of rule changes, and to measure safety. So if you get a card, please participate in the survey.
Meanwhile, out in Hays, Kansas, there's a small aircraft company that builds airplanes with very distinct personalities. Al Marsh reports on 2 new characters from Rand's Aircraft.
Here are 2 new light sport aircraft from Rand's, the speedy S-19 Venterra and S-20 Raven. Here's Randy Schlitter, aircraft designer and company owner.
Why do I fly? I've always flown. I've known my entire life. My earliest memory is flying in a Cessna 195 sitting on my dad's lap, heading to California, 4 years old. I can't see over the dash. He's pointing to the gyro saying, keep this white line straight. So I'm doing that diligently. I'm an organic autopilot. Years later, I sat in the 195 and found out he couldn't see over the dash. But that was my exposure. That was my lifestyle. And I've always loved flying. And I've always had a quest for that moment you have in the air, like the first time you actually realize you're up there flying yourself in control of that aircraft, and that moment you want to relive that. And I've been reliving that constantly since 4 years old practically. As a designer, I basically have no official credentials other than the School of Hard Knocks, other than an A&P mechanic. and the exposure to aviation since knee-high to a BF Goodrich. We've done a lot of work with consulting engineers, and I jokingly say I'm an engineer by way of breaking a lot of stuff in static testing and that type of thing. The 19 came along back in about '07 when we first started flying it. It was designed to what we believed to be the new SLSA rules, which we thought were going to be 1475, but it ended up being 1320. So it's a beefy aircraft as a result. And that aircraft is one of our first all-metal, all-CNC machined aircraft. And that was certified as the first SLSA original U.S. made and U.S. design. It was the first one of the light sport movement that was under that designation. We're looking at some upgrades on the Venterra. So now we're trending toward more bling is the thing. But there is always a cost impact to doing things more blingy with less weight impact. So we're going to try to amp up the look and appearance of the interior and a more fancy paint job and some other refinements that people have been asking about. The 20 is our newest entry. It's kind of an aircraft built out of proven components from the Courier and the Coyote series. The 20 uses the wing and tail of the Courier and the cowling and engine system and control system out of the Coyote. So we kind of like gleaned the best pieces out of two great aircraft, built a new fuselage and some other characteristics. In the end, it's its own airplane. It flies a lot like a Courier, but yet it has a little flavor of its own, which is nice.
That's the S19 Venterra on the left, while Randy is in the newly certified S20 Light Sport tailwheel on the right. Let's take him up. From its looks, you'd think the $125,000 Raven is a bush plane, and you would be right. To prove it, Randy landed off-airport at a memorial to the mysterious Blue Light Lady, just outside of Hays, Kansas. Once back at the airport, it was time to test the 115-knot Venterra. Obviously, visibility is no problem for the $165,000 aircraft. From Hays, Kansas, Al Marsh, AOPA Live.
Good-looking airplanes. Thanks, Al. You can read more about these two light sport aircraft in the February issue of AOPA Pilot magazine.
And now a few notes from the entertainment industry. Uber and Airbus are teaming up to provide transportation to the Sundance Film Festival. You will fly into Salt Lake City, pull out your Uber app, and book a car ride to the heliport, where an Airbus H-125 light helicopter will be waiting to whisk you to the Park City heliport and another Uber car to take you to the red carpet. It's an experiment, but Airbus thinks there may be a future in Uber helicopters. And this final note, you may well remember some years back when the Disney Corporation lobbied Congress for a TFR over its Florida and California theme parks. Congress wrote a permanent TFR into law. Nothing could fly below 3,000 feet over Mickey's homes.
But now Disney wants an exception to that from the TFR. The Imagineers are asking for FAA permission to fly their own swarm of drones over the Magic Kingdom. It's called Flixels for Flying Pixels, and Disney is trying to patent it. The drones light up and fly in formation to create designs and words in the night sky.
You know, it's sort of like aerial advertising.
Yeah, it is, which is what many thought Disney was trying to outlaw when it asked for the TFR in the first place. FAA should consider this one very carefully. And on that note, I'm going to go check out my snowblower as we hunker down for the major winter storm that's due to hit us here in the Northeast.
We hope to see you back here next Thursday. That is, if we can get dug out by then.